Let's rally the people and bring them all near. Sing out our songs for the whole world to hear. This is the cradle of all that we are. This is the heart of the storm. This is the ground where the future was born. This here is Anvil and this is our home. Each song that we sing and each story we tell, each hero we name and each life that we sell, each breath and each beat of your heart is a beat of the drum. Give me drink in my cup and friends who will share it, song on my lips and ears that'll hear it, fire in my eyes to light all the good people I see. I tell you, my friends, there's nowhere that I'd rather be. Before 10 in the morning, we're barely alive. We're like ghosts, we're like spirits, and then coffee arrives. Then heroes awaken and stand by your side. Now gather your courage and sing out your pride. For the storm will not break us, although it may try. The sun may beat down and may bake the world dry, but we stand by our neighbours and raise them up tall. Gather your voices and scream out the call. For you are my empire and you are my hall. For you I would fight and for you I would fall. For you are the beat of my heart and the heart of my song. Give me drink in my cup and friends who will share it, song on my lips and ears that'll hear it, fire in my eyes to light all the good people I see. I tell you, my friends, there's nowhere that I'd rather be. So fill up your tankards and fill up your lungs. Leave no words unspoken and no song unsung. Make noise for your heroes, your kith and your kin. Sing out their names and the pride that they bring. Together we stand and divided we fall. And the future we write will be shaped by us all. For we are the singers and we are the song of the story.
Hello everyone, welcome to the stream, welcome to my channel. We are sort of going back a little bit to more of the basics, I think, on this one. So we're going to go back to touch on just the virtues as a whole. The last time we did it, we then went, we need to do the virtues in every single nation and every single virtue and everything in the world ever. And that led on to a lot of stuff. So we're going to go back to the basics. We've got some very, very experienced people here. So, it's Lee. Hi, Lee. Thanks for coming. Hi, Brett. Brad Stiley. Hi. So this chat is going to be, we're going to touch on the virtues. If you get any questions, that's why we're doing this. Ask any questions. We'll say we'll all ask the questions. I won't. I know nothing about this sort of stuff, so I'm worse than useless. But we all know Ginny and how great she is when it comes to the virtues, and she knows everything. So, but if we go to the person above me, Christina, and she can say a little introduction about herself and what she does and everything, and then we'll move on to John.
Hi, I'm Christina. I'm the player of Genoveva Barossa, who is one of the Camorra Barossa group. I'm currently Inquisitor of Pride and have been for, I was going to say about a year of events before, 2020 happened. I became Inquisitor by volunteering to do an Inquisition. So if anyone's got any questions about how you get positions, I'm happy to field that too. And I have some pretty definite thoughts on the virtues and religion in the Empire.
Excellent. And to my right, that's John.
Hello, sir. My name is Jonathan. I play Leonardo y del Toro Iroqueza, the freeborn member of the Tribune. So my job at events is to do all the boring paperwork so you don't have to, really. So I've got quite a lot of experience now, pretty much the same year that Christina has of direct synod involvement, but from the admin side of things. And I think I was there when I think I may have announced your appointment, actually, Christina. So that's
Yeah, I think you did.
so there you go. So I might chip in more on the process side of things than on the virtue side of things, but I guess we'll see what we get to.
Excellent stuff. And it seems like we got a lot of new people watching today, Ginny. So do you want to do a little introduction?
Hi, I'm Ginny. I play Vivian de Coderfer. I'm a priest of ambition, currently cardinal, and I've been gatekeeper before. I love the Way of Virtue. It's fantastic. It is the best argument game in the world. Have fun.
And for those who don't know me, my name's Steve. I play Mac, or Macus Belisarius Traherne 2 Feet, and that's the full name. You'll never hear it in field. Full names only, yeah, thanks. So yeah, I play Mac. I do fighting and in-character drugs, and I get into a lot of trouble. So we go on from there. I've been accused of heresy once, twice, maybe 3 times in an event. An event we did well, but that's it. So I try to organise all these streams so we get a lot of stuff together. So thank you once again for everyone coming along. So let's start with a very, very simple question then when it comes to the virtues. Christina, which is your favourite virtue?
So that's actually a tricky question. This is not the first time I've played a character who's quite invested in the Way of Virtue. Genoveva is dedicated to pride because that was the virtue I hadn't played that I was most sort of keen on. I really like loyalty. I think you can have some fascinating conversations about it, and I think there are a lot of different perspectives on it. Though my current character's perspective is maybe some people lean too heavy on it. So I wouldn't like to choose between loyalty and pride, but those are my top 2.
Loyalty has got me into a lot of trouble. It got me arrested. It was
Every single virtue should get you into trouble.
yeah, it was.
That's literally what they're there for. It should also help get you out of trouble and help work out what the next trouble's going to be and help plan future trouble and all of that. That's what it's there for.
Well,
Exactly. One of the key things about all the virtues is they all say do stuff. None of them say sit in a corner and be quiet. All of them say go and do the thing. It's a different reasons for doing the thing, but it's all do the thing, and that's integral to the design.
Well, I'll tell you what happened to me, because I definitely did the thing. And then you can say to me, well, that was a good thing, but I can see why they did that thing, and stuff from there. So basically, Mac and Grim, we were off our tits on Twilight, which is an in-character drug. It's a euphoric high. And Grim was over by the toilets in Wintermark, and I was by our fire. And all I heard was, who's that stood over Grim? So I turned around, and Grim was lying on the floor, and someone from the Brass Coast was stood over him, holding a weapon. I grabbed a weapon and went running over, and I kicked 10 bells of crap out of that guy from the Brass Coast, because I assumed he had done that. Then, obviously, everything went away. They picked him up, we grabbed him away, and blah, blah, blah. Can confirm no one comes out of this story sounding good or clever. Yes, pretty much. I'd like to think I do, but no, I don't. Then the following day, the militia come over and I promptly get arrested for assault. And they said, why? And I said, well, my friend was on the floor. I saw someone stood over him with a weapon. I assumed that this had happened, so I went running over, put him down to save his life because he was bleeding out. And they were like, oh, okay. Well, you're fine. We're going to fine you. And all of this. I was like, okay. So I went off and I paid a fine. And it all basically came from me and Grim had stolen someone in our hall's weapons who showed a massive lack of, well, wisdom, vigilance, everything, you name it, because he had left his weapons lying around. So we were running around with them. And then he came and chased us, beat us both up, and he put Grim onto his bleed count. And that was it. So nothing happened to him. I had to pay all the fines, though. So that was what loyalty got me right there. But I'll tell you what, I would do it again tomorrow.
So, like, one of the best bits about the virtues is how they interact with the law. So, this is where pleading clemency comes in. So, quite a lot of the time, if you can sit there and say, yes, what I did was against the law, but it was the only thing I could do in the circumstances, and I was trying to do like the least harm possible with it, and there was a virtuous reason for it. That's what clemency pleas are there for.
So I did a clemency plea the start of last year for Joe Rooney's character Raphael Barossa. Because he took a bunch of people into the Imperial Mint to take down those damn idolatrous statues. And in the sort of write-up about this, a couple of people who worked at the Mint had got injured. And Lieselotte von Holberg, don't say that when you've had a few drinks, not that I have, was determined to bring a prosecution for this. So I defended Raphael, and the three things you have to show are that you have exhausted all other options, that you were the only person who could carry out the action that was virtuous, and that it definitely was acting with virtue. The feedback I got actually from the magistrate was that it's very, very rare for anyone to actually follow that structure. Most people turn up and apparently waffle about virtue and hope that that meets these quite specific criteria. So my one piece of advice, if you ever need to do a virtue defense, is read the description of the virtue of defense that's on the wiki, and then stick to those 3 points, and don't waffle, because the magistrates don't actually have that much time to hear it.
There's a fair number of priests who've done this a lot. Jared of the Sons of Koros is notorious for some of his virtue defences. There's a fair few others on the field who've done it a lot. Ask around for other people who've done this, and it's super, super good value to get that done. I mean, Jared's most infamous virtue defence was actually when he was being prosecuted for murder or attempted murder. Yeah. So
Did he do his own virtue defense?
Well, no, the victim did the clemency plea. It's the best.
Okay. Excellent.
Attempted murder got thrown out on grounds of loyalty and vigilance, I think, because the victim argued so appropriately.
Wonderful.
Combined with the people who've raised inquisitions against themselves, but yeah.
So I always have mixed feelings about that, about raising inquisitions against yourself. I think it's, I think one, you need to pick the right inquisitor, and if you want a thorough inquisition, then picking your mate might not get the best result. And I don't know, it's become a bit of a pattern in the game when people want to prove that an action was virtuous. I've had a fair few people come up to me and say, "You're Inquisitor, can you inquisit me about this thing?" And I've only said yes to one or two of them, partly because the number of inquisitions I can do per event is limited, and you might as well spend your in-game time and resources sort of where it's gonna get the most value. But also, if you believed you acted in virtue and no one's questioning it, or they are but they don't have the ability or the will to actually get an inquisition raised, then is it actually worthwhile to kind of preempt that?
Well, I'm gonna say we've just, as I said beforehand, we've probably just had 4 questions pop up immediately. Just also to say hi to George. He's just come in. Gecko Gamer. This is a young lad who I got chatting to over on the Tabletop Weekly stream. So nice to have you here, George. Welcome, mate. Helen just says I'm such a trendsetter because she asked the first question. God dear. Oh, she wants all the attention, doesn't she? So she has asked, which nation do you want to try out the religion game in, and what looks most fun for the religious game? Okay, let's go to John for that one.
So one of my backup player character ideas, if I do ever go back to playing, is an Urizen priest who is obsessed with the kind of almost not quite torchbearer, I guess, but the almost questor side of the religion game, and trying to basically nail down what actually is virtue. Let's just pin it down exactly, like a butterfly in a book. This is an example of virtue. This is what virtue looks like, and then everyone has a nice dedicated tick list of things that virtue is, and then no one can ever be confused about it ever again.
Okay.
It's a ridiculous concept, but I think I don't know what you're talking about. I've literally got like 6,000 words sitting in a document about that.
It's part of it is part of it is because partly as Tribune, I've seen a lot of effectively arguments about what is loyalty or whatever, and it just feels like a character that's going there. Let's just settle this debate now, assuming it will be easy. Is just feels like it will start a lot of conversations.
I'll wait for you to get executed for heresy with that one. They'll find a way.
It's really difficult to get executed for heresy. You have to really try to be a heretic if you want to get executed.
As someone who has had a character executed, it's doable, but
yeah. You're speaking like you're the only one. Yeah, I've been executed as well. It was great.
Or heresy?
No,
it wasn't for heresy.
Wasn't for heresy. No, mine was for murder. That someone else did. So there's a lot of in character stuff to it, but so I won't go into it. But it was
mine
brilliant.
was for murder too.
Did you do it?
Yes. And I don't mind sort of saying that OC because we admitted to it at our trial loud and clearly. It's widely known the Tangled Thorns killed someone and we all got executed for it.
Fantastic.
So we thought we were acting virtuously. That was our defence.
Yeah, my defence didn't go that well because they were asking me all the questions about it. I was like, and I have no idea what you're talking about, I'm afraid. So I'm really sorry, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. So, okay, so if we move on to the next question, then we'll go to, this question's got Ginny written all over it. What's your most and least favourite virtue and why?
So I literally, all of the virtues are absolutely amazing. It depends on what you want to do with them. The worst virtues are, weirdly enough, the false virtues. I'm really, really not fond of love and peace and hope. Peace and hope, basically, as a roleplay experience, means that you sit there and go, ooh, I really hope something goes right. What am I going to do about it? Nothing. I really hope someone's going to fix this for me. What am I going to do? Nothing. Peace sits there and goes, I'm just going to, maybe we can listen to each other and, we'll compromise and we'll come to an agreement, and at the end of it I'll have probably just agreed with you, and you're just like, that's not fun. Why would you do peace cults? Why would you do hope cults? Don't bother. Just do the cool ones that let you get into lots and lots of more trouble. Ambition is a bomb. What's your ambition? Take over the world. In.
I can agree with that. I liked love. I met as my previous character the love cult out in the woods. 30 of them, all unarmed, just sat there singing, wearing white robes. They were just there rocking and singing. We walked up to them. They came over to 20 very heavily armed Navarre. They hugged us, and we were just like, we don't understand this. What's going on? And then they started preaching to us about it all. And then one of our priests just went, "This is a false virtue. You are all going to be executed." So we went, "Excellent," and we killed them all on the spot. Executed every single one of them.
Seems legit.
It was a great skirmish. I had so much fun on that one. So, what about you? What about you, Christina? What's your
Um,
most favorite and least favorite?
so my least favorite is actually to do with how it sometimes gets described in play, which is wisdom. Um, I am really, really sort of. I have had, if I had a pound for every time that a person has described something that is just sensible as wise, I would be a very rich woman. Like, being sensible isn't being wise. Knowing a thing is definitely not being wise. It is not knowledge. It's not how many books have you read. And I think wisdom, sort of, as I read it based on the actual tenets of it, is fantastic. But how it often gets played is I know things and I'm really cautious. And I just don't think that's the, like what Ginny said earlier on, all of the virtues really strongly encourage people towards action.
Yeah,
And the way wisdom is sometimes played in the field is a mixture of knowing things and being cautious. And I don't think that's what it's meant to do. Um, so yeah, that's my least. Out of character, I adore ambition. Like I want to take over the world. I want to be empress. I want to be a senator. Like, I think it's a fantastic way to get people to do things. Um,
I
and I
mean,
think that's probably the most important role of a in character religion in a game. Get people to behave in the way you want them to behave. And I can't imagine anything better as a game runner than people that actually get off their backsides and do stuff.
yeah. What about you, John?
Um, I struggle to find one that so I like all the virtues as mentioned earlier. I think there are a couple which I think are, I guess, for me a little bit overplayed almost. And for me, the ones we haven't mentioned are courage. I find there's a lot of courage that's just kind of it's a bit rah rah rah, let's go and fight. And I think there's a lot more to
Mm.
courage than rah rah, let's go and fight. I think that
Oh
gets a
yeah.
little bit undervalued.
yeah,
Mm.
And I think as well, one that I really like that needs more love for me is prosperity. I think there's a lot of I'm going to try and keep out the politics side of things, but there's a lot of in the game in general. Let's all work together and share our stuff. And prosperity is all about actually, I'm going to do a thing. I should be rewarded for doing that thing because I'm turning my skills or my influence or whatever it is into a useful output. So I should get something back for that. And it's all
Yeah.
about building something up for you and yours, and on the other side of things, putting what you've then earned to work in doing other stuff. It's about the cycle of economy, and I think for me, that's maybe something that isn't explored as much as it could be in game. People pushing for no, actually, I deserve X in return for Y,
Yeah.
because that's
Mm.
possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you all have? Would you give to someone about being dedicated then? So I think that's something that's not really touched on because a lot of people come into the game already. I follow this, I follow that, I follow the other, and then when it comes down to a lot of the role play, they find, oh, I follow this, but I'm actually doing this over here. It's just like,
Mm.
then they just don't do anything about it.
so you can only start the game dedicated if you start the game with the dedicate
Mm.
skill, um, as with the capacity to dedicate other people. If you don't come in with that skill, which makes you a lay priest, you don't have to have a congregation to be a priest.
Yeah.
Um, then you don't come in dedicated. At that point, it's a thing that you actively have to choose to
Mm.
do. In the wiki, it's quite clear across the Empire, being dedicated isn't hugely common. There's a
Yeah.
much higher incidence of it in Anvil because Anvil is where the movers and shakers are, and
Mm.
that's what virtue means. It moves, it shakes. So a lot of that is about, it can be either I've got a thing that I want to achieve and a way that I think that I achieve it best, and a dedication will help me foster that. Or it can be I'm not feeling particularly courageous. Maybe if I were dedicated to it, I would understand it more. I would be encouraged to follow it more. It
Yeah.
can think about it, talk to priests. Always, if you're like, maybe I should get dedicated, go talk to a priest. That's
Mm.
literally their game. They love it. We love that shit. Come to me literally anytime you want. Hi, I want to be dedicated to ambition.
You,
Yeah.
you broke up a bit
So,
there, Ginny. Sorry. It's all right. It's all right.
Sorry.
Sorry, Christine. I interrupted you. Do apologise.
no, you're fine. Yeah, so the last person I dedicated was someone who was really struggling with not feeling pride. And they were, in character, they were sort of playing themselves down as not being a very important member of their guild. They're a league character. And they came to me and said, essentially, can I talk to you about pride? What pride means? We had a long conversation about it, and actually they said, I think that being dedicated would help me build up my pride and do things that make me proud and make my family, my guilds proud. And sadly, I've yet to see kind of much of the outcome of that, because no events this year. But that was a really lovely kind of, rather than someone coming in and saying, I think I'm the embodiment of pride, someone saying, actually, I think this is a weakness and I need to work on it.
Okay, that's quite an interesting way of thinking about it like that. I must admit, I can't. I don't think I've ever come across it like from that sort of perspective before. For me, the only times I've seen it is when people are like going into a battle and there's a courage priest there saying, "Do you want to be? Can I dedicate people to courage or anointed and things like that?" And it's just like, okay, because people want to get that extra rah on for battle and stuff like that. And then, so, yeah, I mean, I think that from that sort of perspective, I've never thought of it like that. But I think that excuse me, I think that's just me
Mm.
on that front. Um, so we'll go to John for the next question as to start off with the next question, because I think this could be quite good for this. So any tips for a first time priest? It feels like there is so much to know.
I will be honest, there is a reasonable amount to know, but I think one of the key things, you don't have to know it all at once. That's fine. Same with every aspect of the game, really. You don't have to understand everything at once other than how to be safe. That's the only thing you should know by the book. Everything else you can learn and get to grips with, because pretty much no one in the field understands every aspect of the game. There's so much out there. My chief tips for a new priest, if you've got a congregation, as soon as you can make time on the Friday, come to the hub. The hub is a big tent in the middle of Anvil. Almost everyone will be able to point you at it. It's on some of the maps in God if you need to get it, a map for God as well. And it is the center point of all the administration in the Empire at Anvil. And that is where you will find two important things. One, a very, very useful poster that Ginny puts on a board that tells you when all the meetings for priests are. Every meeting pretty much goes on that board, and it is so useful. I wish we could make it more official, but it's technically not official. And the other thing is you will find us, the civil servants that are attached to the synod, called the Tribune, and we can help you explain to you your powers and give you pointers. And the very worst thing you can do is point you at a priest and say, go talk to them. Because we know most of the priests, and we can usually find someone who will match up with you. To be honest, I think that is a really good way to just start, is by talking to priests, because they know the game, they're doing it right this second as you go talk to them, they've had probably some experience of it, and you can tell them what sort of things you're interested in, they can help shape that journey for you. So I think that's probably my number one piece of advice: come to the hub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think, so my first couple of years at Empire, I did not play a priest and didn't play anyone who's sort of really interacting with that side of the game. And honestly, it took me a long time to realize how much stuff went on around the judgments and how they get posted and meetings. And I had a better idea by the time I started playing Genoveva, but I wouldn't have known what to do in my first few times at Anvil. And I think either decide, if you're going to play a priest, either decide to be a priest of the way and have a kind of general understanding of the way of virtue, or if you're going to play a priest who's dedicated to a virtue, get familiar with the tenets of that virtue. And that is probably enough to get you started. As long as you can sort of justify whether an action is in line with those tenets or not, and that is, you can probably argue it anyway for almost any action, then I think that's probably enough to get you started, and you can work out the rest from play. Like Jonathan said, turn up to the hub, find out where to vote, have opinions on things you can vote on, and then if after a while you want to sort of up it to the next level, my personal game is in picking judgments I want to get past, and going around the field strong-arming people into voting for them, which, let me tell you, there is a lot of shoe leather in getting a greater majority in the General Assembly.
I can imagine. Ginny, do you have anything to add to that?
Pick the thing you want to achieve. Don't be scared of asking people. So, the Ambition Assembly is surprisingly full of priests who say things like, "Oh, my ambition is to help other people achieve their ambitions." Have a thing you want as well. It's okay to do that. I mean, this can be something really stupid, like for your first game, go along to a virtue assembly meeting, or find a statement you disagree with, or talk to someone in the queue while you're waiting to vote. But give yourself stuff to do that gives you excuses and reasons to talk to other people, because you'll feel way less stupid going up to someone and being like, "What do you think about Judgment 57?" than you will be going, "I like Pride. Do you like Pride?"
Yeah.
It's totally okay, by the way, to go, "I like Pride. Do you like Pride?" That's fine too. But sometimes it's helpful to give yourself cues and suggestions on the way through.
Yeah, especially the judgments that have been raised by, well, almost all of them get raised by individual priests, and the only kind of hazy bit there is mandates. But go and find the person who raised a judgment and ask them what they're playing at is fantastic game. Like, if they cared enough to raise a judgment, they will have some interesting opinions. And they will probably be really happy to talk about them, because they've probably spent the time between events thinking about how to word their judgment and what they want to get out of it. So if you go talk to them, you will have an interesting conversation in almost all cases.
Excellent. So that's good things for us. A lot of stuff there for new players as well that they can get involved in, because if everything's written down, everything's there, then they're able to just go up to it, see it, and go, "Well, I can go and ask about this." So it's almost like a pick your own adventure thing, isn't it? You can see that, you can see the names and just go off your shoot, and go and find them and go and have a chat.
Helpfully, it'll say, Vivian de Cordofer of Dawn, and you've got a name and a nation then, and you should be able to find them.
But in that situation, though, when you do, I will say this to everybody: when you go around asking for people, sometimes that person has had 70, 80 people come up to them to ask them the same question. They no longer want to have that person there. So I have, on more than one occasion, sat there with the person that people are looking for sat in our tent and just gone, "I have no idea who they are or where they are. Sorry." And I've sent them off, even though that person is 10 feet behind me in a tent. But
ways to get around that. You don't have to talk to the person who put the statement up if you don't want to. You can always talk to literally anyone in the assembly who gets to vote on that. So for the General Assembly, that's any priest. For a virtue assembly, that specific virtue. For a national assembly, that specific nation. If it is on the off chance for the Assembly of 9, you can try bothering Cardinal. We are usually available. It's
Yeah.
fun.
And that probably comes back to go to the hub, because certainly I get a lot of you can reach a lot of people as a priest by standing in the hub, and instead of one person coming up to you at a time, you can probably answer 4 people's questions in one go or more. And particularly actually if you turn up to your virtual nation assembly meetings, they are great places to ask questions and ask why a person's raised a particular judgment.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that that's it's a special thing from me because my character is a dick. So not everyone is like that out there. I will be the first to say that. Okay. So, but I will always invite you to sit down and have a drink with me by the fire. That will always happen. So, there was always going to be role play there. And yes, I 9 times out of 10 do look like a prat when the person that they want to see then walks out of the tent behind me, and I've said no, they're not in there, and it's just like, oh well. So it happens a lot. So, but it's all good, and it creates some interesting moments and stuff like that. So I do like that. This is one that's this is a question from Helen. Is it ever infuriating the misconceptions other players have about the way? Example, you'll get executed for heresy super easily. Inquisitions are only bad, etc. John, do you want to take that one?
I'm not sure infuriating is necessarily the right word. I think there are some misconceptions out there, and I think part of that is probably the religion game in general is a little bit siloed in the field. There are plenty of players who never really engage with it that directly. Maybe they've listened to a priest a bit, or they've been in the hub at some point and seen a judgment, but I think there's quite a lot of players who just don't have time or don't have the interest to really engage with that. And I think as a result of not engaging with it, they don't get to know it, and therefore rumours spread like wildfire, and the moment anyone says anything potentially that might be heresy or blasphemy or anything like that, they're instantly going to get executed, and that obviously just does not happen. I think part of Empire are very much picking your battles. So I think, you know, rather than being infuriated about it, I view it as a thing that, you know, if those people are worried enough about it, they will start engaging with the religion game, and then not only will they start understanding how it works, but also they have a chance to actually get some meaningful roleplay out of that misconception they started out with. But yeah, it very much is not frustrating, but I think a little bit disappointing sometimes how easily the rumour mill sort of churns out this idea that Empire is a place where you can get executed for saying the wrong thing. It's really, really hard, like I said, to get formally executed. Ignoring skirmishes where people stab people up in the woods, because that's a little bit harder to manage. But a magistrate is not going to convict you and sentence you to execution unless you've had a full trial and you've had basically probably at least 3 opportunities to say, actually, sorry, I was saying the wrong thing. Can you forgive me? Because for one thing, it's not a fun game to just, you know, kill people for misunderstandings. That's not the point of the game. I kind of wish that all the people that had these misconceptions went and asked someone about them, like a priest or civil service or anyone else engaged with the religion game. Because I think there's a lot of potential there for people to go, actually, my misconception's wrong, but actually the Synod can do something I didn't know it could do, and that could be really helpful to me. They could revoke a general for me. They could get me some money out the Virtue Fund, and I could actually do the thing I've been needing money to do for the past year. So there's so much the Synod can do for you if you only think to ask.
I had no idea about that.
What, Virtue Funds?
Yeah, no idea. Didn't even know that was a thing, I have to admit.
So my one piece of advice about the Virtue Fund is that money is allocated in the order the judgments are raised. If you really want money out of the Virtue Fund, be there when the hub opens on the Friday. That's because they've seen a lot of things that got enough votes, and then they come to get dished out, and all the money's gone.
Okay. May be changed coming up. So I think that has been updated in the Long Dark now. thanks to a fun conversation. It was great. Now it's counted the same as mandates, so it's highest differential between plus and
Oh, okay.
votes for and votes against.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
But at the point where they are called, as in the
I know,
screening
I
deadline.
know. It's still Friday closing. Still. Anyway,
Yeah.
that conversation for another time, as I will delicately raise that yet again with the Constitutional Court, and they're going to love me for it.
Excellent.
That does the feedback. I think so. Just I guess clarifying for some new players. So yeah, the synod has a pot of money called the Virtue Fund. Most of the money goes in by selling Truly Ow. So there's one dose of Truly Ow that's sold every event, and all the proceeds go straight to the Virtue Fund. That's normally at least about 50 thrones at the moment, so that's a lot of money. People can also donate to it if they want, which happens now and again, and then you can try and get money out of it with a judgment of rewarding. There are a couple of positions that can just do a free judgment of rewarding and just nab money out of it whenever once an event. But most of the money that comes out via individually submitted judgments of rewarding that have to get voted on. And it is a nice pot of money if you can get your hands on it, and it's definitely worth looking into that if you're in need of cash for a virtual course.
I'd be more interested in paying to get the Truly Ow, I think. So, can people just come along and say how much is it going for, and can I donate this much to get it?
So you need to go to the Saturday Bourse auction, the public Bourse auction,
It's
which
there,
is
is it?
usually held in the Senate building. I
Yeah,
can't remember the time. I'm going to say is it 7 or 8 o'clock?
I think it's
I'll
7.
double check that.
Yeah.
7 o'clock. And it's an open auction, so it goes to the highest bidder. It has gone for, I think, once. I mean, the highest was it 80 or 90? I want to say off the top of my head. It's gone for quite substantial amounts. It's also gone for much less than sometimes. It is the rarest and most holy substance in the entire empire, so it goes for a pretty penny for a reason. And it is the only, well, it's not the only way of getting your hands on it, but that substance is the only way you can have a so-called past life vision, or a truly out vision, where your character will experience a vision of a past life that they had. And that is, for those that have had them, the most intense role-playing experience you will probably ever have. And it's deliberately designed that way.
It's yeah, it is good. As has been said into chat, nothing like the auction. I've never had my feet go so numb and get there early. I think people actually bring their own chairs and stuff like that to sit on there as well. So yeah, be prepared to stand around.
I mean, I think having some kind of chair that is easily portable is one of the simplest ways to make your Empire game substantially better. Like, as someone who is both in Conclave and Synod, so I do a lot of long meetings, and I have a small folding like tripod chair with a leather seat and wooden legs, so it looks in character, and I just have that slung over my shoulder, and if I get to a meeting, put that down, and my meeting suddenly gets all that discomfort of, oh my god, my feet are so sore, is gone.
Yeah, definitely. It also leads into good sensible footwear as well. I mean that's a must too. But that's another stream somewhere down the line. We'll talk about kit and stuff like that. So Matt Daweswood has asked a question. For people seeing Matt Daweswood also puts in a lot of links. So anytime we talk about stuff, he's pretty spot on when it comes to posting the links to the wiki about everything. So he does really well. As I said last stream, I owe him beers for doing this for me, because I haven't asked him to, but he does it, and it's great, and it helps out massively. So he has asked. I also have to ask. Can people hear my daughter in the background at all? Because that's all I can hear at the moment, even through these. So I'll have to put a stop to that at some point. No food for a week or something. It's fine.
Shocking.
I'm joking. Really am joking about that. But yeah, so Matt has asked, what is your favourite religions of the foreign barbarian nations?
Ooh.
That's open to anybody, that one, because This is quite a loaded question. I like this one a lot.
So for me, it's probably, is it the Commonwealth that has the one that feels, I'm going to generalize wildly, kind of like almost a bit communist, a bit like helping out your fellow citizen, and that's quite cool. Asavea is probably the one that I hear talked about the most because I think it's probably the easiest to wrap your head around. Like, it's kind of like Greco-Roman pantheon. They have lots of gods. It's bad. But yeah, the Commonwealth one is the one that I have only heard a bit about, but it has really intrigued me.
Okay. Ginny?
I am super down for entertaining arguments about the Aksu because, I mean, they're basically like the Goth Empire. They sit there and go, "We come back to life and it's terrible. Let's live forever as an immortal candlestick." And you're like, "That's definitely an opinion. What?" Or like the Faradin, who are like, "Well, we agree with you basically everything that you say, apart from, those virtues that you hold to. We think half of them are junk and we know it instead." And that gives such amazing arguments. So I like the ones that are like the way, but this is different. Like way, but different, because it gives you a huge amount more context and framework that you've already got, and you're basically just arguing about the nitty gritty bits, which coincidentally are super heretical.
Excellent. Everyone likes a bit of heresy. Let's. There's a lot of stuff going on there now. What about you, John? Any particular favourites that spring out?
I have to be very careful here because I might have insider information from my history on the plot team, but I think I would suggest it'd be very interesting to look at the Orc nations that border the Empire, because their take on religion is deliberately very interesting, and it goes in a very different direction than the human ones because Orcs have a very different side of spirituality and what religion means for them. And I think the parallels between the Imperial Orc view of not so much the way, but their view of the Howling Abyss has some interesting contrasts with the different Orc nations.
Yeah, hard agree. If you're playing Orc or Orc interested, there's just so much there. It's amazing. I thoroughly recommend going to talk to the Bone Walls or the Skywise in the Imperial Orc camp if you're at all interested in the Orc take. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
They've done
Yeah.
glorious things with that.
Yeah, I've had some really fascinating conversations last year when there was the stuff about can orcs be exemplars and paragons. Had some wonderful roleplay around that.
Well, obviously they can't be. But we'll move on from that subject. I'm just
drop that in there.
No. That's for a heated argument in the field, I feel.
There are 2 Orc exemplars.
Yeah.
That are recognised by the Imperial Synod.
So we've had another question, but this sort of comes on. This moves on nicely onto this. What's your favourite form of heresy? As I understand, there's many different types. John, I thought it looked like you were laughing there, John, for a second.
Thank you for an interesting way of phrasing it. And form of heresy, I think, is an interesting way of phrasing it. But I think Jimmy would like to speak.
Yeah, so the crime of heresy is defined as the willful rejection or perversion of the orthodox doctrines of the faith as laid down by the Imperial Synod, or actively teaching and promoting false doctrines. So there's a lot to unpick there, but very, very roughly, point 1, it is down to players, PCs, to decide whether or not another PC has committed heresy. You can only be judged by an inquisition as being guilty of heresy. So it's not something that someone can just haul you up in front of the magistrate, shake you and say they've done a heresy. You've got to get inquisition first. at which point they'll decide there.
Okay.
Other than that, you can also argue about doctrine priest to priest,
Hmm.
much as you like. Fundamentally, the concept of the way of virtue is that it is a philosophy of reason. So you should be able to argue it, because how else are you going to improve it, make it better? It is a living faith, and it changes. We've had 2 new doctrines of the way put in to cover what the orcs are doing and what the orcs believe as a baseline, and it should be able to change.
Hmm.
So the line between heresy and experimental theology is basically, who are you talking to and who did you piss off?
Because I think we discovered in one of the virtue chats that it's not so much, when it comes down to a lot of it, it's not what you're saying or what you're thinking or believing that can be heresy, but it's how you're saying it. So, because when, I don't know if you remember, Ben Wagner in chat, he is a new player. He's coming to Dawn, and he was talking a lot about. He prompted a nice discussion about making glory a virtue,
Mm.
and it was really interesting the way that it all went back and forth on that one, because it basically came, talk about it, bring it up, come and talk to the priests, but don't say it this way. If you say it as this way, then it's not heresy, and it seemed like an incredibly fine line, and in a very thin sort of avenue between it all as well. So
So I think my kind of neat summary of the difference is you can ask pretty much any question you can think of. It is really hard to argue that you're committing heresy by asking me a question. Like, even as an inquisitor who's found someone guilty of heresy, which was tricky. I
yeah.
spent 90% of that conversation not convinced they were actually committing heresy. And then they said one thing that made me certain, and it's as subjective as that. You know, if they'd picked a slightly different phrasing for that one thing they said, I would not have convicted them of heresy. So I think if you are careful, and also I've played a character who was a heretic, and didn't get found out, and was inquisited and didn't get found out. So it is relatively easy to get away with heresy if you want to. You just phrase it as questions rather than statements, and be very careful about when you're talking to cardinals and inquisitors. Around anyone else, you're probably fine.
Hmm.
Depends on who you're talking to, she says, naming no Martin Orchard, priest of vigilances.
I think that's an interesting way of putting it, because I know of an incident where someone got inquisited for simply asking a question about magic, and it was just, and that was it, and they basically then got inquisited for that question, and I was just like, okay, that's a bit odd. I didn't agree with that.
Is it worth me explaining for people what the process of inquisition is? Because I think a fair few people will have heard rumours about it, but not actually know how it
Hmm.
works. So, essentially, if I, as an inquisitor, decide I'm going to do an inquisition, and that could be because someone's come and talked to me and convinced me a particular person needs to be inquisitive.
Yeah.
It could be because I've spoken to them and I think they're committing heresy, blasphemy, a bunch of other things, just acting unvirtuous. It could be. And I decide that it's worth doing. I raise a judgment. I get one free judgment per season as Inquisitor, specifically to raise an Inquisition.
Hmm.
And I can use my other judgment as well, as can any priest. And I raise that judgment. I go and see probably Jonathan, and write it out on a piece of paper with my name on and a ideally succinct explanation of why I'm doing it. Because what is then going to happen is all the other priests of the assembly I've raised it in and it can be any assembly, but you're probably making your life hard if you make it the general assembly.
Yeah.
You might do it for added legitimacy, but it might also be harder. So you raise the judgment, your fellow priests go and look at it, read it. They have to ideally be able to make their mind up on whether to vote for it from reading that description you've put up. So it's worth spending some time drafting it in a notebook. You can always ask Jonathan for a couple of judgment sheets when you go up, so you can scribble it out and then go, no, that's dreadful. And they will vote on it. And if it gets a lesser majority, so if more people vote for it than against it, then you get to carry out, the priest named in the judgment gets to carry out the Inquisition. So I have no extra weight doing that as an Inquisitor, but I can do more of them just because I get an extra judgment. And I get the impression there's this kind of subtle, if I find you innocent or guilty in an Inquisition, maybe people give that a bit more weight than a priest who is not an Inquisitor, but I think that probably depends on who you're talking to. Some people seem to really take that very seriously, other people do not seem to care, and that's cool. The range of views is also cool.
Okay. Because I didn't really know that was how that was all done. So this is, as I've said to Ginny multiple times beforehand, is because I know nothing about this sort of stuff. So this is a lot of me learning as well as we're going, and I've learned a lot here. So once you've done all of that, then what is it you do after that then, John? What happens when it's all then passed on to you?
So in terms of all we do is the admin of we put the judgment up on the board so everyone can see it and then take votes on it. And in this example, Christina will have picked an end time for that Inquisition.
Right.
And there's the specific, we call them scrutiny deadlines, which is just a needlessly fancy word for end time. So we have specific points where it can close. But when it closes, we tot up the votes, and as she says, there's more for than against, it passes. That we announce the result, and that's kind of the end of our involvement in the process. Then Christina does her Inquisition, and she gets to nail the person down and talk to them for an hour, and they can't go away within that hour unless she lets them go, on pain of being done for subverting the agency of the state. And then Christina has the very weighted decision of what she does next, because you've got 4 options, well, 5 options technically. You can just ignore it and forget about it, or there's 4 different so-called sanctions that can be raised as a free bonus on top. I don't know if you want to go through that, Christina.
Yeah, you can give someone a penance, which is I can tell them to do anything that seems reasonable for me. Though, having been threatened by the magistrates for one of my penances, apparently you cannot do something that incurs a cost for the person doing it. It was certainly very well argued that was theft by proxy. I think that was to do with the player arguing it and the magistrate thinking it would make game, and it did. But I was allowed to reword it, so it didn't kind of invalidate it. I can choose penance, which could be you need to prove to my satisfaction that you have educated yourself about pride. And in this case, it was you have to go and apologise to the person you did this unvirtuous act against. I can castigate them, which is a kind of, it's sort of the next step up. It's a telling off. And I can issue a condemnation, which is I think you are guilty of one of the crimes against virtue. So blasphemy, heresy, or idolatry. And there is a thing I've missed, because that's 4.
So the 4th option for sanction is vindication.
Yes.
Where you say this person's pretty all right, actually. I don't know what everyone's talking about, or the equivalent.
Yeah.
This person's actually a good person. You should be like this person. They're good.
Yeah. And I would say, actually, of the ones I've done, probably 2/3 have been vindication, and there's only been 1 condemnation and 1 penance. So.
Yeah, and again, one of the key things about that sanction, or any of those 4 options, is a new judgment, and it has to be voted on again by the same assembly. And those can be voted down. Doesn't happen that often, all things considered, but they can fail and not be upheld. At which point it has absolutely no effect. Now, technically, one could argue that all of them, apart from condemnation, have no legal effect anyway, because they don't trigger anything to happen. But actually, judgments getting voted down and not getting passed does have a bit of a meaningful impact, because it kind of shows the opinion of that assembly. And there have been some instances where they've been voted down so heavily that more than half the priests that could vote on it voted against. That's called a greater majority against it, which really solidifies that no, this is definitely not something people agree with. And that goes for any judgment, but includes sanctions.
You can get interesting situations where people agree. So the condemnation I did, the people broadly agreed with my judgment that this person was guilty of heresy. They didn't agree with some specifics that I'd put in the judgment, and I had a real hard time talking people into it, because of what excommunication means. So if the judgment for condemnation passes, they can be excommunicated. And there are two parts to that. There's a legal part and there's a spiritual part. And there is a chunk of the player base who feel that excommunication, even for someone who has committed heresy, is too far. That as it was argued to me, putting someone beyond the reach of virtue, beyond redemption, is too far for any soul. And that was some fascinating arguments out of that. Essentially, do we have this power for a reason versus are there some things that are too far?
Okay.
It is worth noting very, very briefly that we have no actual proof one way or the other on what actually happens to someone who is excommunicated if they're killed while they're excommunicated. Just saying.
So a scientific experiment then will be to get someone excommunicated and then brutally murder them, and then
there's this thing, right, called experimental ethics.
What's ethics?
Just putting it basic. You know what? Standards. That one's a bit cheap. Though, if anyone who is going to be executed anyway wants to be volunteered to be excommunicated, I think that there's a niche case there. There is a reason this hasn't been fully investigated.
So, having seen someone raise a condemnation against themselves and it get voted down, it doesn't, even in that situation, it might not pass. Because in the example,
to be fair, was Medea Ruth.
Yes.
And we'd had a chat about that one. And that's basically, dear Medea Ruth, no. You don't get to die excommunicated.
I like how your experiment doesn't do any results collecting, just stops with murder. I think it's an interesting thing. I might bring that one to some priests just to see what the thoughts are.
The results
I'll be seeing you soon, John, I'm sure.
results collecting would probably involve looking at Whispers Through the Black Gate.
Yeah.
Because no one is quite sure yet if Whispers Through the Black Gate brings back a person's ghost, a person's spirit, a person's memory. It's a lot. It's super fun.
I've certainly been told that it is a memory and that it's definitely not their soul. But of course I was told that.
On the other hand, there are specifically magic items that exist, which, if you are part of a religious group that is all signed up to a particular magic item, for which I can't remember, when you die, you go directly to the labyrinth. Your spirit may not be caught as a ghost. And at that point, you don't turn up and whisper through Black Gate.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You mean the literally labyrinth? The reliquary?
Yes, I do mean literally the labyrinth. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
One of the coolest magic items that exists.
It is one of the coolest magic items that exists because it raises so many.
Yeah, so I think that could be quite an interesting one to do. When it comes to Scott put an interesting point in chat saying he knows a fair few people that vote yes to every Inquisition, regardless of reason.
You know what? I would so much prefer people vote yes on literally everything than not vote at all.
Yeah.
If you have a congregation, please vote. Please vote. Because not voting makes it less game for everyone else.
Yeah.
Vote. Vote on shit.
There
So
is definitely a view that there is essentially an inquisition by itself does nothing legally, socially. Like it's a priest asking you some questions for an hour, and the general view among most priests who vote regularly tends to be, what's the harm in asking some questions? So if they don't know, if they haven't had time to read it, quite a lot of priests, not all, but quite a lot, will vote in favour just because it's no harm, and on a kind of OC level, it probably gives the subject of the Inquisition some game.
So Scott's just said the general view is any Inquisition is good, though. Yes.
I mean, there have been inquisitions which are set up to be frustrating or what people, for instance, inquisitions name a time and a place.
Yeah.
This can be made a weapon, which is coincidentally where the religious crime of abuse of priestly powers comes in.
I was
I'm
sorry,
pretty
Christine.
sure I have been advised by Jonathan that deliberately picking a time and place that would, say, prevent a senator from attending Senate would be very easy to argue against, and that I would be expected to pick a new time and place.
Yeah, the kind of principle is it's technically a subverting the agency of the state not to show up to an inquisition, but if the inquisiting priest hadn't agreed a reasonable time and place, then the magistracy is unlikely to prosecute you for that. For example, if it's in the middle of Senate when you need to do an important Senate thing, they're probably not going to view that as subverting the agency of the state because the priest should really have picked a better time. If they choose the place to be through the Sentinel Gate in the middle of the battle, there's probably a strong argument for that's not a sensible place to hold an inquisition, really.
Well, I don't know. That could be fun.
You could probably make an argument that it wasn't a reasonable choice. But yeah, this is why I always give the advice whenever someone goes in a position: have you spoken to the target? Because it avoids all the legal kerfuffle. If you've spoken to them, they said, "Yeah, we'll do it at 7 p.m. in the hub," then they've got no real leg to stand on if they don't show up at 7 p.m. in the hub. Whereas if you pick a time and then they go, "Actually, I had a really important meeting at that time," or I was at my brother's funeral at that time, or something like that, then it's a bit harder for you to be able to go, "Well, probably reasonable, maybe."
Yeah. And the hub is a great choice just because you'll get an audience. There's room for people to spectate, and there will be people around.
Yeah, no, that's good. I am going to point out one thing, Christina. It is the time.
I've used the magic powers of communication to communicate, and I'm fine to stay. For...
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, yeah, good.
No, I appreciate you.
Yeah. I'm just going to quickly turn an oven on, but I'll be right back.
Wonderful. Okay, so we've had all the links going in, Litany of the Labyrinth and the abuse of powers and things like that. I'll scroll back up because there was another question that I had missed. So from Helen, this is going back to the misconceptions about things that priests do. So why do you think that these misconceptions arise? I feel there's a lot of density that scares people away from reading about the way, so they don't inform themselves.
I think. Do you want to go, Ginny?
It's possibly more importantly, there's a lot that, if you look at it without having the time to do more than just skim the top, it feels a lot more complicated than it is,
Yeah.
and it's a lot easier to get lost in the breadth and ignore and be like, oh, there's a lot underneath it, when what you can do is just like slice down and say, all I'm going to do is pay attention to ambition. I mean, in my case, I literally walked into my first game going, I've got a rough idea on what I think ambition does. Let's just move on. Admittedly, I did then religiously follow around the guy who later got elected in to be cardinal. At the end of Friday night, he said, if you vote for me, I'll make you gatekeeper. And I was like, that sounds good, I'll vote for you. And then went away and had to desperately look up what a gatekeeper was. So, you know, there's times when it can be like good to have a broad view, but you don't need it. Talk to people, ask about stuff. Every single priest I know signed up to the priest game because they like banging on about priest stuff.
Yeah.
You are literally doing us a favour by asking us questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And I wouldn't even worry that it's a question we've heard before, because even if the starting point is similar, the specifics are always different. Like that player, that character, that, you know, whatever they've been doing recently in character, it's always it's always worthwhile for us to talk about free stuff and virtue. But I can see the person's point that I think the wiki in general puts some people off. I think some people find the idea of there's so much information compared to almost any other LARP you might go to. And that can feel, I think, for some people like pressure. Like, all that information is there, therefore I must know it all. And there's all these people who've been playing it for, 6-7 years now. And, you know, you must all know absolutely all of it. And I think it's very easy for that to get into people's head. And I guess the best thing we can do is to say, like, read your nation brief, read a few other pages, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think I'm I'm probably the perfect example of, I've been playing Empire since E1 year one. I've been since the very, very beginning, where we had we had all the snow and the ice at the very first event. That was, the temperatures changed, -16, 12, 8, 24, who knows now. But it was very, very cold. So we had that, and I don't know everything, as has become very abundantly clear. There is so much to this game. There is so much in the wiki. Moon has just said in chat, the huge amount of info is like both brilliant and terrifying. And I think, I mean, in my eyes, that is why the priest game, the virtues, everything in this game it's why they, instead of making it very PvP, it's all very much, you need to know other people who know this stuff. You need to talk to other people who know that stuff, because you can't do everything on your own. And I think that's why it's such a good thing. It's why when we do when I do these streams, it becomes very, very clear. We don't all know everything, but we'll have for argument's sake, we'll have Christina, who will know all of this over here. We'll have Ginny, who will know that bit over there. We'll have John, who will know all of this bit over here. They'll sort of connect these two, and then you'll have me, who's at the pub. So it's all very much, it just doesn't, it's everybody, you can cover everything, but you will need to go and have a chat with person A, B, C and D, but verify it with F, G and H as well. So you have all of that, so you can do so much. So I know it's terrifying to read it all, because I mean, I look at the wiki, but only for specific things that I need to know now, because otherwise you're stuck there for hours. So if you want to play a priest, read what you are going to be a priest of, and read up so you get the basics, and then go on from there, and then find people in the field to ask more. Learn in the field, because it creates so much gain for everybody. It is so good. And I've always encouraged, something I've always done on all of my streams, is I've always encouraged roleplay. I've always encouraged people to go up to people and just ask them anything. So like, my favourite thing is, There's no stupid questions, just stupid people. It's a great philosophy that I have. So I will always say, go up to a fire, sit down and say, hi, I'm this person, can we talk about this? And they'll talk about it. And people will talk because they love to talk. So, so Matt's just said, my standing advice for players who are daunted by the amount of information but want to learn is to play a character who has limited knowledge. While you're in the field, every time someone talks about something you don't know about, jot it down in a notebook, then go read up on it when you get home. That way your character learns at the same rate you do. Yeah, it's a really good bit of advice. Ellen said Empire history is really interesting as well. You need to know very little to play the game, but the fact that if you feel like you want to know a piece of history or info, then it's 9 times out of 10 something that exists somewhere. So there is a lot of stuff there. So it's like, Christina, what was it that made you want to get involved in the priest game? What was it?
So my current character is my 5th. I've
Wow.
So I made a character in year 1 event 1 who was also in the league. The group it's fair to say it suffered from the fact that a lot of the information about the game didn't come out until very shortly before the first event. And we made a bunch of assumptions that turned out to not actually be true in play. And the group kind of disintegrated. I then played in Varushka and played someone with some interesting views on freedom and eventually got executed. And then I played a couple of very high combat characters who got themselves killed doing very cool things. So my Urizoni character saved a bunch of their friends from dying and then died. And my Brass Curse character got the Wraith Curse, didn't get to a priest in time, and then chopped down a load of their friends in the middle of the battlefield. So it's all been good fun. But after that, I kind of went, one, I would like a character that is going to last more than 12 months, because I put a heck of a lot of effort into costume. And it was really starting to get to me that I'd been through 3 characters in 3 years. So I wanted to play a non-combat character for a couple of years, reduce my chances of dying. And the priest game was the bit I hadn't really got into. I'd played the religion game from the Heresy side of the fence, but I'm really aware that's not the majority sort of experience in the Empire. Most people follow the way of virtue, at least sort of in name, and I just sort of, over time, I've wanted to explore all the different bits of the game, because there's so much of it that I don't think any one character can see all of it, unless they're in play a very long time, and even then, you're not gonna have all the skills. So I've just kind of gradually my interest shifted over time, and at the point I made this character, I was after someone with some survivability, and wanted to do a thing I hadn't done before.
That's fantastic. That's really, really cool. So 5 characters. Are you on your 6th now, are you?
No, this is 5.
So this is your 5. So murder, heresy, and 2 deaths in a battle.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That is absolutely awesome. Something that one of my old STs, he plays in Highguard actually, Stuart Bozier. He used to be my old ref for Vampire the Masquerade. And when my characters died, he came up to me and he said, if your character has died, it's because they've affected the game. And that has stuck with me for years. It really has, because I think it's that's a fantastic thing to say to people, because I've seen people who've had characters die and they've sat there. I mean, I've been that person. I've sat there and I got really upset over it because I had that connection, so a lot of character bleed there. But it's like, I will always say to people, yeah, you've made a difference. You've been executed. Oh, well, what did you do? It's like, oh, you definitely deserved it, but you've made a massive impact on the game, an impact that will be talked about. You will be the cause of so many stories now around that field. It's fantastic. So I love to hear those sorts of stories.
It's a lot of fun getting to hear the stories about your old character as your new character. Desperately try and keep a straight face. and not correct any details they're wrong. That's probably the hardest thing.
Mm.
When someone's like, this Varushkan character did this, and they murdered this person and this person, and the times I've had to go, I can't say it was just one murder.
No.
But
No.
yeah, it's a great way to see it, a really positive way that, you know, if someone has killed you, or if you've committed heresy, or you've really done something, especially in a game the size of Empire.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic to see, and I love it. It's something that I love in the game. It's the passion that people get from this game. It's how you'll talk to someone about Empire and they'll be like, "Oh, I did this, I did this, I did this." Go, oh, but I did this, and then they're leaning forward, and it's like, "Oh, there's this, and there's this," and they're really getting into the nitty gritty of it, and it's just like that's why I love this. And Scott has just said in chat that your Urizen lot's death was epic.
Thank you, Scott.
So
Yeah, yeah. So very, very briefly, some of Orison had got strung out to one side of the battlefield, and me and two other characters from my group. Um, it was really visible that someone needed to fight off these orcs for 5 minutes to allow Orison to regroup, and essentially we had one of those crazy moments where we're like, yeah, we can probably do that, and it got all three of us killed. But so I know that General Nicasia mentioned us all in military council. Yeah, it's been lovely, and it's incredible that it was recognised. So like, thank you, Scott, and thank you like other people over time who've said stuff to me, because I think sometimes you can end up feeling that one character in Empire isn't that big, that influential, but like, do something cool on the battlefield and people will still remember it 3 years later.
oh, yeah, definitely. I think even people, I've spoken to so many people who have only been to one event, and they go, I didn't do much, I didn't get involved in anything. It's like, okay, well, did you go into a battle at all? Did you do a skirmish? Did you go to Song of Story Time? Did you go to any of the bars? And they're just like, well, yeah, I did that. And it's like, oh, I did this though, and I did this. And then they proceed to, they've gone from saying, oh, I didn't do anything, and they've now told me 10 stories that they've done of things that they've got up to, and it's like, well, come on, that was awesome. I said, so you've done all of this, so what are you doing next time then? It's like, oh, well, I enjoyed doing that, so I want to go on from there. So they've gone from, it was all right, to all the keen in the world, to looking forward to the next event, 12 stories, and they're buzzing, and it's fantastic to see, and that's why I love doing this. Really do love doing this. I don't know if you can tell, but so I have to ask, because John, because your crew, aren't you, with everything that you do
Yes.
here, so you see everything from a very different perspective. You see it from you're from essentially from the outside looking in, so you'll see the players doing a lot of stuff. So I know you've got an NPC character, and you sit back and you watch a lot of things being put up on the boards. You see a lot of judgments. You see court cases, executions. You see everything like this. Because did you get to make your character? Did you come up with it, or did PD just say, "This is what you are doing. This is you"?
PD don't make characters for people. It doesn't work really,
Oh,
with the exception of when you're playing like a plot NPC. But even then, they tend to, the plot writers will work with the NPCs to make the role work for them. Because if you've got no investment in the character and you don't know who they are, you're not going to play them well. My civil service NPC was my player character in Year 1E1 and Year 1E2,
okay.
and then was my R&R character when I was an NPC on the plot side of things, or when I was a plot writer as my R&R character. And then when I moved over to the civil service, it was just the natural choice of which character I would be in the civil service. So, and the same thing goes for all the egregores, or similarly they're NPCs that PD support, but I'm not aware of any of them where PD said this is the character you're going to play. I think they told them what the egregore spirit was like and what its kind of like overall themes are, but they no point said you're going to play a landskeeper marcher person, because that doesn't let that person be an effective person on the field.
No.
What I think, the thing I kind of occasionally have to remind people is, civil service, egregores, etc., etc. We are characters as well. Um,
Yeah.
when Ginny and I were talking before this stream, there was a joke about no icy opinions, and but of course the Tribune doesn't have any. And I said, well, the Tribune might not have any, but Leo definitely has a lot of opinions, because we do, and we would be. If we didn't have any opinions, if we weren't really playing proper characters, we may as well just be refs. We may as well just wear yellow and gold and black, and just be functionaries with the tablet. But we don't. And PD have very carefully designed the civil service and the egregores to be part of the world, and it doesn't interfere with the way we run the game. Well, help run the game for people and help all of the admin happen. But it does mean that we are characters, not functions.
That's fantastic.
It makes such a difference to the players as well. I think one of my favourite moments from last event was Leo shutting the hub down so we could all say goodbye to Adam, and that was just amazing. It was so good. It was just
that was beautiful. Like, for those of us who spend a chunk of our game in the hub, that was lovely.
I'm glad it had such an impact. It was really interesting at that moment, I think, because we knew that the players had planned. So this is when one of our civil service colleagues, Adam, was retiring from the synod department, if you will, after, I want to say, 5 years in the role. So it was a really big moment for his character, and all the cardinals and some others had put together some nice little gifts for him and little ceremonies and things to do. And we'd been plotting on our own side of the people on our side of the thing, and to have little gifts ready. And yeah, there was this moment where we kind of got they're about to do something, and we rang the bell and said, basically, synod is suspended for 15 minutes or so, and all went over there. And I think the ability that we can do those things helps, bring that life to the world. For me, the thing that I first noticed when I first came to Empire back in Year 1 was that it was immensely immersive. I went onto that field, and I had to remember sometimes that I was actually, a person called Jonathan who was however many years old and had come to a field to camp. And I get that still pretty much every time I go, that there'll be moments where I'm there and I just have to remind myself, actually, I'm not a freeborn called Leo. I'm a person called Jonathan. Should probably get some lunch about now. And it's just so easy to get lost in the world, and that's one of the things I love about Empire. It really is.
Yeah, last year I had to remind myself of that. Someone said something, and it was about when all the mirrors in Sarvos got broken. And as a League character, like, of course I had strong opinions on that. And someone from High Guard made a very casual, oh, it's not that important comment. And for a character who's generally quite calm and collected, I completely lost my temper. And I'm walking off, and then I had one of those, oh no, have I done something bad because I shouted at someone? And then I thought, no, I suspect actually for both of us that was pretty intense and immersive. And the fact that someone said something and I lost my temper enough to actually shout at them, but it was entirely in character, is a real sign of like how immersive Empire is.
Definitely. We've been asked Hal's the guard. Leo is very much a civil servant, even before the official job.
I would like to take offence at the suggestion that Leo was a civil person, but no, my character. Try not to claim fame, but I was one of the first in the very first event and a couple of events. I was one of the people pushing to found the Imperial Hospital, the School of Medicine. That was because my character comes from a medical background, very much so. So that was the thing he was doing in the first couple of things. So I took a very conciliatory approach with the character, as very much so. Let's try and work together. I had a kind of idea that I would just kind of twist things around so everyone would get paid for their work. That never actually happened in the end. But goals was something to have at the time. Yeah. I think, I don't know. I think playing a character that you want to play or that you've created helps give that sort of investiture in it, that you are invested in, that you want what that character wants to an extent. You want that character to experience things, and for some people it might not be good things. Some people might want their character to experience heartbreak or distress, so so that they can feel that character's journey. And I think for me,
Yeah.
I'm very happy with the journey that Leah's had so far.
Awesome. Yeah, you've been. I didn't realize it was you because I've done the hospital stream, and we had some people there. So and they were talking about you, but I didn't realize that was you.
Wait, what? I'd kind of assumed by now I'd been forgotten. It's been so many years, so it's only two
No,
events. I think
no,
I was
no.
fine.
You were definitely mentioned. So
Wow, okay.
that's really good. So that's a nice legacy. That's exemplar stuff. That right there. Just sort of throw that one out there. See if I've been paying attention.
I wouldn't go that far, but I'm sure other people might. That's fine.
So I do apologise for that crackling sound. There's a bag of sweets right down there, and I dipped my hand in. So I do apologise for that. The new mic's good for cutting out a lot of sounds, but I don't think it was good for cutting out those sounds. No, it's not. So I've been asked your best priesty moment. So that's got people thinking. I like that.
So I've got a very definite one because it's quite recent.
Okay.
The mandates. So sometimes there is a plot opportunity to do a thing through the synod, and that means there is a mandate, and they can come about in a few different ways. But at the end of last year, there was an opportunity to Lisabetta encourage the Empire to undertake a physical, mental, or spiritual pilgrimage. And I very, very strongly wanted one of those options to get passed. So there's sort of a string of things that had to line up. So I got to the synod for the point, not the synod, to the hub at the point it opened on the Friday. So I was the first person to raise that judgment, because there is nothing to stop other priests raising pretty much identical judgments, and it often happens. And then you get shenanigans about which one gets to. Ideally, you want to agree that one of you keeps yours on the board and the other takes it down. And sometimes that doesn't happen, and then neither passes. So got to the hub, got my judgment up on the board, and then so I set it, the deadlines that Jonathan mentioned, the scrutiny. I set it as late as I could to give me as long a time as I could to hunt down 1,500 votes worth of priests, which is what you need for a greater majority in the General Assembly. And given a bog standard priest has, it varies a bit, but 8 or 10. Some places it's less, but yeah, that's a lot of people to find and convince. And yeah, so I spoke to about 120 people over a day and a half, and I am surprised I didn't sort of seriously wind Jonathan up by turning up and going, how many votes have I got? How many votes have I got? Because you can do that. If you've raised a judgment, you can go to the person who's collating the votes and you can say, tally up my votes. And of course, I needed to know the point at which I could stop persuading people. But you don't get to completely relax then because it's a balance. So more people might vote against it. So I harassed the voting queue for about the 2 hours before closing by, as people walked in and I had a captive audience, going, while you're here, can I just talk to you about? And honestly, when they announced that it had passed and got the greater majority, and it was the only one that did, I was over the moon. And I'm probably going to struggle to top that ever. So I will be quiet now and let someone else go.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Well done. What about you, Ginny?
I mean, it sounds really stupid, but the best priesty moments I've had are usually dedicating people. Like, anointings they'll last for a season, that I've had. So a lot of time people will be like, "Oh, will you dedicate me?" And there is a good chance that straight off I'll be like, "No, let's talk first. I want to see whether or not this is a thing that actually works for you, to see if you understand what it means, and we'll take time over that." So I've had seasons and seasons of talking to someone, and then we'll go into a quiet place and just do a little tiny thing with both of us around a candle. Or, I mean, I've most recently spent like 2 years trying to persuade someone to switch from wisdom to ambition, and it finally sorted that out in the long dark. And then it was in the middle of a ballroom, surrounded by friends and family, and it was a massively different thing. And it was still the same moment of this is a change. This is people buying into what the way of virtue means and choosing to make it a part of their character and a part of their life. And yeah, the impact that you can see the way of virtue has on people's games, then I just really love that, just all the different ways of doing it.
Fantastic. That's awesome. John?
Bad example because I'm not a priest.
No.
I don't do any priesty things.
So I was going to say, so what would be your most memorable moment then from when you've been working in the hub then? What would be something that stands out to you?
I think the bit I always come back to, I forget exactly which event it was now, but there was a mandate for Brass Coast Assembly, for Freeborn Assembly, to potentially, if they wanted to do it, to go and basically whip up some Freeborn, to go over the border into the Iron Confederacy and go and basically rescue some slaves and bring them back. And it was pretty much guaranteed to cause a diplomatic incident if it happened. And I had the relevant priest that wanted to raise it come to me and say, well, I'm not sure if this is what I want to do. And I was like, well, the mandate is the only option available. You either take it or you don't. But if you're committed to the idea, then I suggest you do it, but it's up to you. And she ummed and ahmed a bit and went, no, I'm going to do it. And she went and she raised the judgment, and it started to get a couple of votes. And then the Empress walked in and said, I've been told I need to look at a judgment. And it was that judgment. Went and found it, and she said, I'd like to use my custodian of virtue power, and that's a power that if there's a throne, they can use that power to make any judgment require a greater majority. So that goes from just more than for than against to more than half of the people that can vote have to vote in favour for it to pass. So it's the "Are you sure?" button. And before she used that power, I said, are you sure this is the judgment you want to use it on? Are you absolutely 100% confident this is the judgment you want to use this power on? And she said yes. So I announced it, and I gave her a little opportunity to explain why she was using it. And then votes continue to trickle in for and against, and it gets to the very end of the summit, and we're doing the big count up of everything. And I'm there, and I've been passed across the voting totals, and I look at it and go, okay, and I write those down. And it gets to the bit where we announce the results of judgments. And I deliberately put this one at the end of the list of the mandates to announce. So all the other ones go through, and there's some contesting ones. They go for and against, and then which ones pass. When we come to this last one, I've taken a big breath, moment of silence. Judgment number, I think it was number 7, and I went through, and the Empress used her custodian virtue power on this, and therefore it requires a greater majority. As at the closing of voting, we assess the greater majority to be, I can't remember the number, I think it was 100 priests or something like that. It is my duty to inform you that with 92 votes in favour and 10 against, it did not achieve the necessary greater majority and therefore did not pass. And it was literally 8 votes in it. It was so close. But that audible gasp in the room is one of the best moments I've ever had at Larp. It was just that sudden moment. I was on a knife edge, and it was so close that it just didn't make it. And that created itself a load of role-playing, a load of game, and I think, I gather, that it was exactly, from a political sense, the outcome the priest wanted, showing that everyone was in favour of it, but not actually having to deal with the consequences of it happening. But in any case, I think it was a particularly suitably dramatic event for a suitably dramatic opportunity.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So we've been going for so my hour-long stream has been going for an hour and 40. Uh, we've done well. This is the conversation that this is the way we say it constantly. So it's nothing new. So Christina, John, thank you so much for coming along to do this. Thank you, Ginny, for bringing them along. It's really really appreciate it. It's been fantastic to have everyone here.
Yes.
Moom has said thank you for all the information. I'm hoping to start my priest at the next event. It's really helpful.
Awesome.
Smiley face.
So there's a list of cardinals on the wiki. So you can always, if you know what virtue you're going to go for, try to do a shout out for your cardinal on Facebook or something like that. There is a very, very good chance they will be super, super pleased to get in touch. Likewise, Gatekeeper and Inquisitor.
Yeah.
Talk with those people.
So thank you everyone for coming along. Thank you for people who have sat there listening, typed everything in chat. I really appreciate it. I will be streaming again on Friday. I believe that it will just be me on Friday. I'll be doing a solo one, just talking rubbish for a while. Brad said this has been fascinating. I'm planning to get dedication when I've got 2 XP, so this has really helped. That's awesome. I like the fact that this helps encourage and this keeps the keen going. So now we've had the incredibly long dark. So we're not going to be back until E1. I will be keeping these going for as long as I humanly can, and I will keep on going. So if you get suggestions for ideas for anything that you want, drop me a message, send it on here. I don't care. Just give any ideas, something that you want to see here, because I'm happy to run with absolutely anything, because it's I would love to keep on going.
I think there's definitely scope for one on kit and like kit advice and what is smart choices, what are not smart choices. Like stay away from the issues about quality and budget and that sort of thing. But
yeah, funny you mentioned that. I have already sorted and spoken to a couple of people, and I will be doing one. So there will be one. It will be specifically on very basic kit. So this is all your soft kit. So we won't really be going into armor and weaponry and things like that. Yeah. This is very very basic stuff, and it will also have one where it'll be bring this to your event. Come along and just have this, and this. This is what you need to survive. You're not gonna die if you have this stuff. It's nice and simple. So we'll have those as well. When it comes to the weapons and the armor, I am doing one of these streams with Darren Stocker from Irregular Props. So we'll be getting him on, and I've got Dave Wimpany and hopefully Ian as well from the Larp Noobs podcast on Monday. Maybe on Disabled and Larp at Ember. Yes, I will be talking to Emma Round, who is in charge of all of that. I've done a stream already with her and Shek, and it's huge. It's huge. So we will be getting them back on to do it again. One from each nation, with specialists from each of those nations in chat. Orc kit, I will be getting all the orcs on to talk about their kit, because the orc kit is a special focus, I feel, more than any other nation, to be honest. So I will be harassing Matt Dawes for advice on that one as well. So sorry, Matt. So we will be doing that. So I will be back on Friday. So thank you everyone for coming along. This has been fantastic, really, really enjoyable. As my wonderful other half has posted there, all of these streams, because Twitch deletes them after 14 days, I download them all and I put them all onto a YouTube channel. So this is actually stream number 41 that I've done. So so we've got the big guest coming up will be Matt Pennington a week on Monday as well, who's coming on. So have a think and come and harass him a week on Monday, because I'm going to. It's going to be good fun, that one, I feel. So yeah, so once again, thank you everyone for coming along, and we will see you. I'll see you all again on Friday. Thanks for
Thank
yeah. So see you all later. Okay,
Bye.
thanks. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.